Hello and welcome to today's episode of Comms Business Live. I'm Charlotte, editor of Comms Business, and I'm delighted to be joined by Mark Shraga, Chief Sales Marketing Officer at Southern Communications Group. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Love to be here.
So today we're going to be talking about delivering on the promise of cloud and how embracing digital transformation is the perfect way to both support the culture that you want to create, as well as helping to open up the bandwidth for change. Now, Mark, over the past few years, Southern Communications Group has changed its approach. Can you talk us through the journey that the company's been on?
Yeah, the company's been on quite a long journey. It's been around since 1965. Part of my role has been to make sense of a narrative or a story for a company that's been around that long. Starting in dictation and the business machines around that, and then into the telephony industry, PBXs and so on. You look back through that, and the only real thing that sort of joins it all is the fact that they've brought people and technology together, and over the years they've followed the interplay between people and technology, and everything that's done is created just slightly more capacity to adapt to the challenges that we face in the day-to-day business space. And so looking at that, I thought, well, okay, there's a story there. I can work with that. And then I looked at what the business was doing across the board, and I can see it was reaching towards facilitating that again. Only this time, the way that it was going about doing it was through software-enabled service delivery. So you had a very strong service delivery division underpinning Southern Communications, but always sort of slightly restricted to reach, because if you make a promise to a customer, you need to be able to deliver on that. But with the advantage of a software-enabled delivery, you can take that promise and deliver it wherever you need to, essentially. And so that's kind of been the journey we're going on. And alongside that, we've acquired cloud platforms. We've moved to an everything as a service model to support our own transformation as a business, and then realized that we could productize this and then roll this out through our sales channels at the same time. So it's very much a story of our own transformation, a bit of reflection, and then taking the principles from that and then driving that out to enable the sales channels.
And cloud really has been at the heart of that, from what you've just said there.
Yeah, from literally, I recently did the timeline for the entrance to the headquarters, the office, and you got this story that goes on forever from 1965, and then you get to 2017. We started buying, cloud capability, hosted colocation, hosted solutions, hosted platforms. We now have two major hosted platforms that cover the spectrum of capability in the marketplace, and enable quite a wide variety of audiences, to get the job done in their own businesses. So yeah, cloud is huge. It's also been a great way of unifying a very disparate series of subsidiaries under one banner, the Cloud Outline, so that they can keep their own uniqueness whilst also seeing something in each other that they can relate to.
Definitely. And so obviously part of what you've been doing with all of what you just talked through is about helping your partners to be more successful, both in terms of the connectivity that you're providing them and also the broader business optimization benefits. So how is that kind of coming together? How are you doing that?
Yeah, so what we've started to do is break down the barriers between what makes us successful and what our partners need, and then just create the most direct route that we can to giving them all of the advantages we have to go to market. And the more successful we've been at doing that, the better the growth has been, both for us and for them. So every piece of advantage that we've managed to, mine, excavate, squirrel away, we've managed to then quickly turn that around and then take it out and engage and share that and give that to the partners to go out and and take the market. So they're in a position now where, as we buy across a panoply of different capabilities, they can. As we can deliver a transformative solution to any level of customer in the marketplace, they can. And so that's really the main thing. And underpinning all of this, most people have been experiencing some sort of squeeze on the price point of connectivity. And if you only ever talk about that, if that's where you find yourself anywhere on a price point, then you're heading towards a zero-sum game. But if we think about the fact that what we're trying to do is help customers to build, new and more advanced cities of businesses, then we're looking at the connectivity as potentially a bottleneck. Don't build a shiny new city and then stick a tiny little road into it. It's going to be hellish. Speaking from coming from Norfolk, that problem still exists. So what we're looking at doing is just upgrading the motorways into these businesses so they can get to the promise of the cloud. And ultimately that promise is being able to deliver on your promises to your customers with an absolute assurance that when you make a promise, you can deliver on it.
Definitely. And part of this transition is this move towards as-a-service offerings. How would you say those are kind of key to enabling change within kind of businesses and partners?
Yeah, I mean, you never quite know where, because change is going on, but you don't know where your audience is at in the change cycle. Not everybody started in the same place. So, as always, the approach is a consultative one. But what we really want to do is help them to get the job done at their side, and that is to optimize their business, get to the customer, close the distance between where they are and their audience as quickly as possible. So we've been doing things like rolling out Teams webinars to help customers understand that, and then rolling incentives for them to bring their customers to that environment, because it's been quite successful. The act of educating and sharing information enables the buyer to think more intelligently around the offering that you've got. There's no point in having an intelligent offering if your target audience doesn't quite get what you're saying. So that's quite an important factor, both educating through the technology we use and selling it through that same methodology.
And how can service providers use these broader changes to really enhance their own business models?
Wow, yeah. I mean, how can they use that? I mean, one of the things that we've noticed is that businesses, in order to accelerate growth in the business, you have to be ready to make mistakes. And the cost of mistakes is one of the main reasons people are quite averse to having them in the first place. But you can't learn without making mistakes. That's literally what it is. Another way of looking at it is, if anybody's ever tried to draw anything, it really is more advantageous to look at it as sketching, and then kind of picking a line and sticking to it when you kind of see the shape of what you're working towards. So if you're building a vision around a business, that's quite an apt metaphor. But you can't really sketch a business into shape through dragging yourself through lumpy hardware and heavy duty, capex costs, and every decision bears the weight of putting red all over your P&L. But if you're moving, as we kind of all are, to an OpEx model and enabling and optimizing a business through software-enabled services into the cloud, you can collaborate much more quickly. You can run through business models much more quickly. You can share ideas. You can run pilot studies into the marketplace much more quickly, and then you can get the feedback you need and turn the learning cycle so much more quickly. But behind all this, because you can enable a learning environment, you've actually got a more psychologically safe environment for people to share ideas. And the stats around having a psychologically safe environment for people to share thought and to make mistakes show that businesses grow so much faster through that kind of environment. So that's where we're moving to. Behind all this, there was a book released in 1999 by Bill Gates called Business at the Speed of Thought, in that book, right in the intro, he goes on about how even then businesses were still putting up with a delay between the information they need and be able to operate on it. And we are moving towards a true environment where you can operate at the speed of thought. You can really think about something, sketch out a pattern, put a pilot together, try it out in the marketplace, and learn so much faster. And that's really what we're looking at in terms of the context for bandwidth for change, which is what we're really all about. Empowered by the cloud. It's about enabling people to have that space to think, to put themselves in the best position to be a bit more intelligent and to take that advantage and then grow.
Definitely. And how does this kind of way of thinking help with differentiating your offerings in what can be quite a commoditized market?
Well, it's enabled us to sort of, flex our footing with our wholesale partners and our channel partners, so that things like adapting from sort of a lumpy hardware model to taking hardware as a service. Essentially, this is just what enables us to do is to quantify the objective with them, and then translate that into the new model. And the closer we get to understanding that their business model, the faster we can help them move to this so much more flexible, so much more scalable way of delivering what your customer needs.
Definitely. So now kind of my last main question for you. So people and technology have been two common threads throughout this conversation. How can channel companies really bring people and technology together in this?
Yeah, I think this is one of the things we really want to drive as SCG out into the marketplace is this conversation, and we will be. We're going to be. We already have forums on LinkedIn and working through various different organisations to have this conversation. It's a really interesting one. Wherever you look at this, what you're looking at is a needs-based conversation where you might have an organisation that. You might look at it and say you benefit so much from taking on the most advanced or latest technology, and really you've got people there that could really just do with some fairly straightforward and easy and intuitive technology. And without having had that conversation, you can't even begin to start pacing change into that environment and optimizing it, because you're not looking at the people, you're looking at the technology first. So if you just look at the technology and you miss the people, you miss the opportunity to create real valuable transformation.
Definitely. So that brings us to the end of this episode of Comms Business Live. Mark, thanks so much for joining us and sharing those insights with us.
Thanks for having me.
So lots of ideas there for every business and every channel company to bear in mind. If you'd like to discuss this in more detail with Mark and the Southern Communications Group team, there are some links in the video description to point you in the right direction. But for now, thanks everyone for joining us, and goodbye.